You are welcome to another episode of LFN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. Attorney Jennifer Bonjean's Chicago appeal brief covers a number of areas of serious legal concern, reflecting on the statute of limitations expiration with regard to accusations stemming from as early as the 90s, the refusal by court to sever the inducement counts related to accusers of pseudonyms Nia and Pauline from the exploitation counts in relation to Jane, and also describes the 240-month sentence Leinenweber issued as above the standard sentencing guidelines which violated procedural rules. Important to note though is that this is not the first time attorney Jennifer Bonjean is making these issues known to the Department of Justice. Way before the Chicago trial even begun, the experienced defense attorney did file several pretrial motions, and among the issues she addressed were these very concerns that are now arising in the appeal process, and now looking even more relevant than before, after the government together with their court counterparts have done a good job exposing themselves for who they truly are. People have now come to appreciate the concerns Bonjean raised back then a lot more now that they know the truth of who his accusers are, and how the government together with the DOJ are involved in endless conspiracies to lock up one man for the rest of his life. Until now, it's difficult to understand why the government prosecutors felt so special and acted with impunity as though to say they are above the law, to imagine that they could charge R. Kelly for events said to have allegedly taken place decades ago while ignoring the statutes of limitations present at that time. These guys have no respect at all for the laws of this land and think that they can get away with unconstitutional conduct unchecked, but thankfully we have attorneys like Bonjean who will not miss any shooting stars. The real reason these statutes of limitations were enacted was to prevent the possibility of wrongful convictions, as naturally after a lengthy period of time as decades pass by, the witnesses to a case may no longer remember the events in question with utmost accuracy, or relevant evidence to the case may already be lost or obscured, or even no longer retrievable. And this does not necessarily apply to the prosecution alone but also to the defense, which may have lost all evidences they could have used to protect the defendant. It's therefore considered unfair practice by law to call on someone to defend himself from accusations from decades ago, especially when handling matters as those R. Kelly is dealing with, and hence the statute of limitations comes in handy to prevent this. The events which transpired during the entire trial process surely do justify the necessity of the statutes of limitation. We saw some accusers who could not remember their age at the time they met with R. Kelly, and also according to Bonjean's appeal brief, accuser Nia could not even remember when R. Kelly allegedly abused them if he ever did. Late last year we published a video which discussed how the Chicago Governor J.B. Pritzker could have been involved in the R. Kelly takedown conspiracy to destroy a 30-year career and have him locked up for the rest of his life, when he chose to assent to the removal of the statute of limitations on sex crimes in Chicago in 2019, conveniently such that R. Kelly would become the first person to be victimized by this targeted legislation. How they even managed to get this proposal to the table during a tough time as during the COVID-19 pandemic is still hard to contemplate. But for some reason they were able to scrap the safeguard and expose R. Kelly just in time before his trials could begin. This is perfect evidence to show that the people behind the making of the surviving R. Kelly documentary, the subsequent arrest and indictment of the R&B King, as well as the prejudicial kangaroo trials are definitely powerful people who can go as far as influencing the governor of Chicago to change the laws to suit their selfish demands. These guys are so powerful, they could overthrow the government if they decided, and they need to be stopped. Their move to take down R. Kelly with all their might exerted, however, also reveals just how important R. Kelly is, that they will go to this length to see him and his career destroyed. All this to take control of his music catalogs? It must be worth something. They did this to Michael Jackson and bought him out of Sony so cheaply after falsely accusing him with similar crimes he later defeated, and when they failed at this had his doctor poison him with an overdose that took him out. Bonjean's Chicago appeal brief, however, counteracts all these malicious efforts to disenfranchise R. Kelly when she reminds the government that new laws or changes in the laws do not affect acts that took place before the new enactments. Like this, she explained the non-retroactivity principle of the law, which states that a law can only be applied to acts that occurred after it was adopted. This is something the federal court officials and the judge should know, And they probably did but chose to ignore this, and all Bonjean is now saying is I told you. According to Deborah, it's no doubt there are wealthy people right behind this R. Kelly takedown project, and the biggest stakeholder is Sony Records, a record company that cares not about the well-being of the artists it produces and distributes. Imagine former Sony CEO once addressed the great Michael Jackson as a childish actor, and that was Tommy Mottola, who once married Mariah Carey and played the role of a devil in her life she has lived to regret.
I mean, Michael had really not taken care of himself, in my opinion, and everybody around him never really watched him the way they should have.
Sony, Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is he's a racist, and he's very, very, very devilish.
These guys will use you and drop you like a hot potato when they are done with you, taking all that belongs to you and leaving you for dead. It's what they are trying to do to Robert, but with God's grace, they won't succeed. We also know the likes of Jay-Z, who is a big-time friend and financier of the documentary producer Dream Hampton, and Oprah Winfrey, who commands Gayle King like her puppet, were involved. For a long time, these billionaires have used their wealth to undermine the value and well-being of fellow African Americans in this country, and they are seeking to do the same to R. Kelly. With these major stakeholders in this sinister agenda, it's no surprise that the governor of Chicago was completely sold out to endorse the removal of the statute of limitation just in time for the R. Kelly indictment to be effected. This is corruption of the highest degree, shaming our country all over the world. According to Janice, I am happy to see Bonjean make an effort to remind this government of ours that in whatever they do, they ought to follow the law to the dot. Imagine such a case meeting with an incompetent attorney. Such important facts would be missed out and someone could remain in prison for all the wrong reasons, when according to the law they should be free. This government has shown us they will stop at nothing when deployed by these malicious stakeholders to lock up someone for life, or even watch him get killed while nothing is done, like they did Michael Jackson. It's so sad to see how many people were involved in this R. Kelly issue, all trying to get him locked up. Thanks, Bonjean. Keep fighting until R. Kelly regains his freedom. If you wish to take part in a live interview discussing any of these topics, let us know by sending an email to sashalfnmedia@gmail.com for scheduling. Thank you for watching today's video, a production of LFN Media, giving you another perspective of issues at hand. We make it our business to keep you updated with the truth amidst the cloud of lies the media wants you to believe. It is therefore important to subscribe to this channel, hit the bell icon and allow all notifications so that you don't miss out whenever we publish a new video.